You want to become unshakable, not just calm, but grounded, not just positive, but principled, to live each day with clarity, strength, and peace, no matter what life throws at you. That's the promise of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy for the modern soul. This isn't about being emotionless. It's not about escaping the world or pretending life is easy. It's about living with wisdom, responding with purpose, and building the kind of inner fortress that stands no matter the storm. In this video, you'll walk through 10 powerful steps to build a Stoic life. Each one simple, each one practical, each one designed to help you grow more resilient, more aware, more aligned with what truly matters. And if you're someone who values thoughtful content like this, reflections that go deeper than the usual noise, consider subscribing. It really helps this channel grow, and it ensures you never miss a chance to return to yourself. Now, let's begin. Step 1. Begin with what you control. You wake up and the world already pulls at you. News, opinions, expectations, the weather, the markets, each demanding attention, each just out of reach. But the Stoics taught that peace doesn't begin out there. It begins with a quiet truth you already hold. You don't control the world, but you do control your mind. Epictetus made it simple. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. That single line becomes your compass. You sit with it. Let it echo. You don't control traffic, but you control how you respond to it. You don't control whether someone likes you, but you control how you show up. You don't control outcomes, only effort. There's a moment, small but powerful, when you stop trying to control what's outside your reach. And in that pause, you reclaim energy. You return to your own center. The world is like the wind. Try to grasp it and your hands close on nothing. But learn to sail with it. Adjust your direction. Shift your attitude, and now you're in partnership with life. You're no longer a victim of its changes. This is not passivity. It's not giving up. It's learning what a gardener knows. You don't make the sun shine or the rain fall, but you do plant seeds, pull weeds, and shape the soil. Ask yourself, how much of my energy today went into things I couldn't control, and then ask what would change if I gave that energy back to myself. When life gets loud, you return to this truth. Your actions, your thoughts, your words, your values, these are yours. Anchor into them. Everything else is weather. In time, this shift becomes your habit. Instead of fighting reality, you learn to meet it. Instead of wasting energy on control, you invest it in character. And slowly, without fanfare, you become more rooted, less shaken, a little more like the oak that bends in the storm but does not break. Because you've stopped chasing what's out of reach. You've started tending to the one thing that always is yourself. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Epictetus. Step 2. Train your inner observer. You move through your day reacting to things as they happen. A comment from someone close, a message that doesn't sit right, a delay that feels unfair. These small moments pile up, and without realizing it, you're swept into them. But the Stoics offer a quiet practice that interrupts the storm. Observe before you respond. Marcus Aurelius reminds you gently, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. There's power in stepping back just enough to see your own mind at work. You begin to notice your reactions instead of becoming them. You watch anger rise. You notice the urge to defend, to blame, to fix. But instead of moving with the emotion, you observe it, like watching a river from the shore rather than being caught in the current. This inner observer is calm, but not cold. It doesn't silence your feelings, it listens to them without letting them rule. You might still feel hurt, frustrated, even afraid, but you don't lash out. You pause, you study, you ask, where is this coming from? What story am I telling myself? Training this observer doesn't require hours of meditation. It begins in small windows, a breath before you speak, a glance inward when you're pulled outward, a whisper of awareness in the middle of noise. Imagine your mind as a room. Most people fill it with noise, shouting thoughts, clashing opinions, old fears, but your observer opens the windows. It doesn't empty the room. It simply lets in space-like clarity. And from that clarity, you act, not react. This practice is like polishing a lens. First, the fog is thick, but day by day, with each pause, you clear it. Eventually, you start to see your patterns. You notice how quickly you judge, how often your fears masquerade as facts. And once you see them, you can change them. Ask yourself, am I watching my thoughts or letting them drive? Am I choosing my response or following a script I never wrote? Each time you pause, you step back into your power. You don't need to be perfect. The Stoics never were. But they trained their minds like warriors train their bodies, with quiet repetition and sharp honesty. You're not just reacting to life anymore. You're becoming a student of it, a calm witness to your own inner weather. Over time, this changes everything. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Epictetus. Step 3. Redefine what truly matters. You live in a world that constantly tells you what to value. More followers, a faster car, a better title. You're shown pictures of success, sold promises of happiness, and praised for how much you can achieve. But deep inside, something feels hollow. The more you chase, the less you feel anchored. This is where Stoicism gently enters with a different question. What truly matters to you? Not the world. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But much of that suffering comes from chasing the wrong things, believing that we're not enough until we have more. More money, more praise, more security. The Stoics didn't measure a life by wealth or recognition. They measured it by virtue, by how well you live in alignment with reason, nature, and integrity. To them, a rich person who lacked character was poor, and a poor person who lived with honor was wealthy. So now, you begin to question the scoreboard you've been handed. You pause and ask, is this goal truly mine or something I inherited? If I lost this title, this job, this thing, would I still recognize myself? Do I want a life that looks good or one that feels right? Think of a compass, not a map filled with other people's directions, but a compass that always points to your true north. The Stoics believed that your inner compass, your rational mind and moral sense, could guide you through any storm, any loss, any confusion. Redefining what matters means letting go of borrowed goals. It means realizing that a quiet evening with someone you love may hold more peace than any promotion, that keeping your word may be more valuable than winning an argument, that a life lived well doesn't need applause. The world races, but you start walking. You stop measuring worth by how much you can carry and begin asking how lightly you can live. A tree doesn't try to be a mountain. A river doesn't envy the ocean. Each follows its nature. The Stoic path invites you to do the same. You'll still have goals. You'll still build and strive. But now they're rooted in clarity, not in the hunger for validation. And when setbacks come, as they always do, you won't be shattered, because your peace no longer depends on outcomes. It flows from who you are. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I only pursued what truly matters? In this step, you're not just simplifying your life, you're purifying it. You're learning to say no, not out of bitterness, but because your yes now holds real weight. wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Epictetus. Step 4. Practice voluntary discomfort. You live in comfort, warm showers, fast answers, a phone that shields you from silence. These comforts aren't wrong, but over time, they dull your edge. They make hardship feel unbearable. They turn inconvenience into crisis. The Stoics knew this. That's why they practiced a counterintuitive kind of strength. They chose discomfort on purpose. Seneca, one of Rome's richest men, would occasionally sleep on the floor and eat the simplest food. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to remember, I can survive this. I don't need luxury to be at peace. In his words, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? You're not doing this to suffer. You're doing it to free yourself from the invisible chains of comfort dependency. You're teaching your nervous system that discomfort does not equal danger, that not getting your way isn't the end of your world. Imagine a runner who never trains on hills. The first incline will defeat them, but one who trains in difficulty meets the race with ease. That's you now. Training not for misery, but for resilience. So you begin to ask, what can I practice doing the harder way just for today? Maybe you take a cold shower. Maybe you fast for a morning. Maybe you speak your truth when silence would be easier. And in that moment, you remind yourself, I can do hard things. Not to prove anything to others, not to punish yourself, but to remember your inner strength, to sharpen your mind, to reclaim power over your reflexes. Voluntary discomfort is not about deprivation. It's about deliberate clarity. When you fast, food becomes sacred. When you walk instead of drive, you feel your body more alive. When you step into discomfort willingly, you're no longer a slave to fear. You are choosing discomfort on your own terms, so that when life chooses it for you, it won't feel foreign. Ask yourself, where have I become too soft, too entitled, too dependent on things going my way? Then, with compassion, not judgment, you gently stretch yourself. This is the quiet power of the Stoic path, not to seek pain, but to rehearse for difficulty, to build an inner fortitude that doesn't collapse when life gets inconvenient or unfair. And when others panic, you'll feel steady. When things fall apart, you won't, because you've already trained for the storm in small, quiet ways. It is in times of security that the spirit should be preparing itself for difficult times. While fortune is bestowing favors on it, is the time for it to be strengthened against her rebuffs. Seneca. Step 5. Embrace the temporary nature of all things. You look around and everything seems solid. The home you live in, the people you love, even your own reflection in the mirror, so familiar, so permanent. But the Stoics remind you nothing lasts. This is not a grim truth, it's a freeing one. When you embrace impermanence, you stop clinging. You start living. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think, not to frighten you, to awaken you. Everything you hold, hold lightly. The people you love, love deeply. But without the illusion, they'll always be here. The moments of joy, the calm mornings, the fleeting glimpses of peace, cherish them, because they are precious precisely because they are brief." This truth is not morbid. It's grounding. It cuts through distraction and draws you back to what matters. You begin to notice how quickly the child becomes an adult, how friendships drift unless nourished, how even the best days pass before you're ready. Impermanence is the whisper behind every beautiful thing. This too will pass. And because of that, you see more clearly. You speak more gently. You complain less. Imagine standing in a river. You can try to grasp the water, but it slips through your fingers. The Stoics invite you not to grasp, but to feel, to be present with the current, to stop living as though things will always be as they are, because they won't. And that's what makes them sacred. Ask yourself, what am I treating as permanent that isn't? What am I taking for granted today that I may miss tomorrow? When you live with the awareness of change, you start telling the people you love how much they matter. You stop postponing what nourishes you. You begin investing in meaning, not just momentum. Even your own life, your breath, your time, your choices, they are on loan, not guaranteed. The Stoics didn't fear death. They used it as a lens, a sharpening tool. It made them urgent but not rushed, intentional but not afraid. You don't control how long things last, but you do control how fully you show up while they do. This is what it means to live stoically, to let go of clinging, to love while you can, to speak with sincerity, to not waste a moment in bitterness or ego, not because you expect loss, but because you respect life. He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a man who is alive. Seneca, Step 6. Cultivate a daily practice of reflection. You move through each day at a pace set by others, emails, errands, alarms, notifications, but the Stoics carved out time to return to themselves. Morning and evening, they reflected, not as a ritual of perfection, but as a habit of attention. Because a Stoic life isn't built in grand gestures, it's built in daily practices. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, began each day by reminding himself of what he would face: rudeness, selfishness, chaos. But he also reminded himself that none of it could harm his character unless he allowed it. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, not to become bitter, but to prepare his mind with clarity." In the evening, he returned to his journal. He examined the day. What did I do well? Where did I fall short? What will I try again tomorrow? This is your practice now, not to judge, but to observe, to begin the day with intention and end it with honesty. A few minutes is enough. Morning, you sit, breathe, and anchor. You recall your principles. You picture the challenges that may come and choose ahead of time how you'll respond. Evening, you slow down. You put down your devices, and instead, you turn inward. What did I say today that honored my values? Where did I betray them? What can I let go of? What can I be proud of? This habit does something subtle but profound. It returns your attention from the world back to your center. It makes you the author of your life, not just an actor in someone else's play. Think of it like tending a fire. Each morning you gather your fuel, discipline, clarity, purpose. Each evening you check the flames, still burning, still strong. You don't have to get it right every time. The Stoics didn't, but they showed up. They returned to the mirror, not the one made of glass, but the one made of thought. Ask yourself, what did I live for today? Where did I drift from who I want to be? This is not self-help. It is self-leadership, and it begins and ends with reflection. In a world that rushes past, your stillness becomes rare. In a culture obsessed with productivity, your quiet honesty becomes powerful, because those who pause guide, and those who reflect grow. This is how the Stoic path takes root, not in books or quotes, but in small daily moments of truth. Let each thing you would do, say, or intend be like that of a dying person. Marcus Aurelius, Step 7. Respond, don't react. A message comes in. It irritates you. You feel misunderstood. Your heart quickens. Your fingers twitch. The urge rises. Reply now. Defend. Argue. Prove your point. But here on the Stoic path, you pause. You don't act from the first impulse. You choose your response. This moment of pause, small, invisible to others, is everything. It's where reaction ends and wisdom begins. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." It's a simple line, but it holds an entire life philosophy. You begin to see that not every emotion requires expression. Not every thought deserves your voice. Not every invitation to conflict needs an RSVP. You train yourself to notice that flash of anger and breathe. You recognize the sting of criticism and observe it. You see the old habit wanting to take over and you choose something else. This doesn't mean suppression. Stoicism is not about being emotionless. It's about emotional discipline. You feel everything, but you're no longer ruled by it. It's like standing at the edge of a road. Cars speed by your thoughts, your feelings, your triggers. You don't have to chase each one. You watch, you wait. And when the road is clear, you cross with intention. Reaction is reflex. Response is reflection. When someone disrespects you, the reaction is to snap back. But the response might be silence or humor or walking away. And each time you choose wisely, you reclaim your power. Ask yourself, what did I react to today that didn't deserve my energy? Where could a pause have changed everything? It's humbling to see how often we react from ego, not from wisdom. But humility is the beginning of transformation. And every small victory, every time you pause, breathe, and respond with purpose, builds your inner strength. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to prove yourself. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Reaction is a spark. But you are not dry timber. You are the water, the stillness, the self-possession that chooses when to speak and when to stay silent. Think of a seasoned martial artist. They don't flinch at every movement. They conserve energy. They wait. They strike only when it matters. That's you now, with your words, your actions, your energy. This is where you begin to live from principle, not impulse. A man is not hurt by what happens, but by his opinion of what happens. Epictetus. Step 8. Carry your principles into relationships. You walk through life surrounded by others, family, co-workers, strangers in traffic, voices online, and each one becomes a mirror. Each interaction is a chance to reveal who you really are. Because your Stoic practice is not meant for isolation, it's tested, refined, and proven in relationship. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "The people I meet today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." But he didn't say this with contempt. He said it with preparation, with compassion, with calm acceptance of human nature. He understood something many forget. Stoicism doesn't mean cutting others off. It means meeting them with strength and keeping your character intact. So you begin to ask yourself, not how can I win this argument, but rather how can I show up with virtue? It's easy to love those who are kind. The test is when someone is difficult, demanding, dismissive. Do you become reactive, defensive? Do you mirror their flaws, or do you hold to your principles? The Stoics taught that how you treat others reveals everything about you and little about them. You can't control their tone, but you can control yours. You can't prevent others from lying, but you can remain honest. You can't avoid all misunderstandings, but you can stay clear, kind, and firm. This is not weakness, it's the highest kind of strength. Think of a lighthouse in a storm. It doesn't curse the wind. It doesn't chase the waves. It stands. It shines. That's your role now, not to control the weather of others, but to remain steady in your values, your integrity, your patience, your compassion. These are not things to pull out only when it's easy. They must survive the hard moments. Ask yourself, who did I become today in my relationships? Did I let someone else's behavior rewrite my own values? This doesn't mean letting people walk over you. Boundaries are Stoic too, but your response can be firm without being cruel. You can walk away without hate. You can speak truth without venom. The Stoics didn't teach emotional detachment. They taught emotional responsibility. And that responsibility becomes most visible when you are tested by others. Your philosophy is not proven in solitude. It's proven in the moment someone cuts you off, misunderstands you, challenges you, and you respond not with your lower self, but with your higher one. Because you are not here to change everyone. You are here to live your values clearly and without apology. Let others act as they will. You act with virtue. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Step 9. Strengthen the discipline of assent. A thought appears. They don't respect me. Another follows. I'll never be good enough. Then another. Everything is going wrong. These thoughts feel automatic, true, urgent, but the Stoics taught a critical skill. Don't trust every thought you think. Pause. Examine. Choose whether to let it in. This is called the discipline of assent, the quiet, deliberate practice of deciding which impressions you allow to become beliefs. Epictetus said, "Do not accept a thought unless it has passed careful examination." Most people move through life on autopilot. A feeling arises and they chase it. An idea forms and they obey it. But you slow down. You begin to question your thoughts like a wise gatekeeper, not with paranoia, but with calm scrutiny. You ask, is this thought helpful or just habitual? Is it true or is it shaped by fear, ego, or assumption? Imagine your mind as a fortress. The thoughts that knock at the door may look innocent, persuasive, even friendly. But once inside, some wreak havoc. Others plant doubt, sow anger, or drain your energy. You begin to recognize these patterns. That anxiety often enters disguised as caution. That resentment slips in as justice. That despair wears the mask of realism. And so you sharpen your awareness. A thought arrives and you don't let it bypass the front gate. You ask it to identify itself, to explain its origin. You test its usefulness. This doesn't make you rigid, it makes you selective. And the more you practice this discipline, the quieter your mind becomes. Not because thoughts stop, but because you stop giving power to every one of them. You can't always control the first impression, but you control what happens next. That's where your freedom lives. Ask yourself, what thought did I believe today that weakened me? What thought did I challenge and feel stronger for it? This isn't about denial. You're not pretending that pain, injustice, or uncertainty don't exist. You're just refusing to let them write your story without consent. You become like a sculptor, chipping away the unnecessary, refining the shape of your mind. Every day you choose what to allow in and what to let pass. Because in the end, your beliefs shape your perception, and your perception shapes your reality. This is the Stoics' quiet mastery, not just to think, but to think wisely. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. Step 10. Live each day as a whole. You wake up with plans. You expect more time, more chances, more tomorrows. But the Stoics warn gently, you don't own the future. You only ever live one day at a time. And each day is a complete life in itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think, not to provoke fear, but to stir presence, to remind you that this day is not a rehearsal." So you begin to shift. Instead of postponing joy, you find it in the present. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you act on what you can do today. Instead of dragging regrets from yesterday or anxieties from tomorrow, you come back to this one breath, this one task, this one interaction. You live as though this day matters because it does. Think of a painter who only gets one canvas. They don't scribble aimlessly waiting for a better one. They place each stroke with care. Or a musician who knows the song may end at any moment, so they give themselves fully to the notes they're playing. That's you now. You stop deferring your values, you live them. Not next week, not when things calm down. Today, You greet people with kindness because today may be the last time. You forgive what weighs on you because why carry it another day? You do your work with integrity, not because someone is watching, but because this is the kind of person you've chosen to be. You stop asking, "What will I do someday?" and start asking, "What can I do well today?" This mindset is not about pressure, it's about clarity. You stop wasting hours in meaningless scrolling, hollow arguments, or passive waiting. You direct your life with intention because you understand how rare this moment is. The Stoic does not live frantically, nor lazily. They live fully. You make peace with time not by racing against it, but by meeting it with presence. And in doing so, you find a deeper kind of time, one not measured in minutes, but in meaning. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Seneca Final Reflection, the Unshakable Life. You've walked a quiet but powerful path, not one of domination but of discipline, not of avoidance but of awareness, not of controlling the world but of mastering your place within it. Through these 10 steps, you've learned that Stoicism isn't cold or distant. It's not about silencing emotion or denying hardship. It's about seeing clearly and choosing wisely. Again and again, you've discovered the strength in stepping back, the wisdom in examining your thoughts, the peace that grows when you stop fighting reality and start working with it. You've chosen to build a life rooted in virtue, not noise, in clarity, not chaos, in calm strength, not reactive force. And in doing so, you've become a little more unshakable. This doesn't mean you won't struggle. The Stoics struggled too. But now you meet that struggle with open eyes. You ask better questions. You act with intention, not impulse. You carry your philosophy not just in thought, but in how you speak, how you walk, how you live. Each day you return to the practice, not to perfect yourself, but to stay aligned with what matters most. And over time, the changes become visible in your presence, in your patience, in the quiet certainty that no matter what life brings, you are ready. So take this with you. You don't need more time, only deeper presence. You don't need to control others, only yourself. You don't need to chase peace. It comes when you stop resisting what is. And when the world becomes loud again, because it will, you return to your still center. And from that stillness, you respond, not as a victim, not as a warrior, but as a Stoic. Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look. Marcus Aurelius.